Good morning. Today, we're supposed to be continuing with the Pride Month series, and we may be doing that, we may not. We'll find out in a minute. I'm super excited to be here with you guys as usual. It is Sunday morning. My name is Rashida Dow. Thank you for being here. Until my guest arrives, let's just talk. Say a few words, hang out with each other. It's been a while since I've had just like one-on-one time with you guys. So let's do that. Good morning. Let me say good morning people who are here. Good morning. Oh, I'm going to mess it up. Sharice Dre, Katrina, Ra'a, Nubianette, Janice, Nubianette, D from Brown Girls Invest 2, Stephanie from Stephanie Perry Media, JG, Brittany Joy, and Marissa. A couple of you are in my YouTube membership. We are going to be live on Zoom after this video. Okay. So I hope to see you guys there live, Zoom, if you're part of my YouTube membership. If you're not a part of my YouTube membership, you can click, if you're on a computer or a Google-ish phone, you can click the join button. If you're on an iPhone, you got to do it on your computer. There's a join button. Good morning, Wendy Cooper. Good morning, Celeste and Charlesetta and Simi and Michelle. Click the join button to join, as Stephanie just said. All right. I'm going to take 1 second. I see you, New Life Curator, and head back over to email. My guest says she's trying to join. I don't know what's going on. Make sure this link. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. That should be it. Okay, so what else are we talking about? We are talking, wait a minute. Give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna have the most amazing guest. You guys are gonna be so happy, but until then, it's you and me. So we're going live on YouTube on Zoom after this, my YouTube membership. And today is the day from Burnout to Bliss coaching. So if you are in from Burnout to Bliss, you're still a member of the monthly coaching sessions. We are live this evening. So you would have gotten an email from me in the past 2 days, unless you weren't in the group in the past 2 days. And then you'll get an email from me this evening about an hour and a half before the session starts, telling you how to join. If you want to join today's group coaching session, you have about until it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Nope. Yes. It starts at 8 p.m. My times are all over the place. It starts at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you have until 7 p.m. Eastern time to join the program, to make it to tonight's group coaching program. And the group coaching sessions are truly like the best part. Probably shouldn't say that, but they really are like the thing, because that community, unbeatable. Absolutely unbeatable. So I am so excited to see some of you guys in the Zoom for YouTube membership later on today, immediately after this video, and then also in group coaching at 6 o'clock. It's a busy day, y'all. It's a busy day. Guest, are you ready? Is that a thumbs up? All right. Okay, so today y'all do not come for me. I know this. Let's get to the guest. We'll talk about this. Hello, Xolani.
Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
You can. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. So sorry for the delay getting online. We are at the mercy of...
No. Things happen. No worries at all. And you gave me time to make announcements, make some church announcements this morning. So thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited.
Okay, good. Okay, so we met in London.
Last year. So it must have been around August, September, I think. No?
April.
It was that early. Gosh, Wow. Yes.
It was April. Yeah. And are you from London?
I am. I
Okay.
am born and bred in London, lived there for most of my life, um, and now a world traveler. But yes, I am from London.
Okay. So you're from London and now you are where?
I reside in Merida, Mexico.
Okay. I knew it was Mexico. I didn't know it was Merida.
Yes,
Okay.
the road from your mum.
I was gonna ask you, have you met her?
Yes, yeah. So I
Okay.
met your mum in London, and then we actually went to like a community dinner thing a couple of weeks ago together. Not together, but we
Right.
saw each
I would say, okay. Awesome. Awesome. Listen, I keep saying this, it's a small world after all, right? Like
other.
once you get into these like spaces, you'll run into people all the time. My mom, when she was in Chiang Mai, ran into friends in Chiang Mai from Merida. And it's
Wow.
like that, yeah, that it just woo.
It's a really small community. It's a big community, but it's a really small community. And I think a lot of us tend to kind of frequent the same
Mhm.
places sort of globally.
Yes.
So yeah, we kind of tend to run into each other quite a lot.
Okay.
There's a fair few people from the community in Merida for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you in Merida alone?
I am not.
Okay.
I am in Merida con mi hija, yeah, with my daughter,
Okay.
who is 4 years old. So we moved out here, just the two of us. We moved when she was 3. So all the joys of single mumhood and having a toddler in tow, uh, yeah, has been an interesting but fun journey.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'm used to hearing people from the US move to
Yeah.
Merida. It's like a couple hours back. You know what I mean? A couple hours back home. You moved from London
Yes.
to Merida. So you don't have like the proximity wasn't something that you were necessarily
Mhm.
looking for. So what was it that drew you to Merida?
So I am in my 40s now, and I started traveling way back in my 20s, my early 20s, and where I did like a stint of backpacking around Latin America. So I traveled all the way from Mexico, overland down to Panama, and then across to Puerto Rico. Um, and really just fell in love with Latin America, but Mexico particularly, right
Mm-hmm.
from then. And yeah, right from the jump, I was just like, this is a place that I want to be. I love the vibe. I love the easiness. I love the community. I just fell in love with it. So I always knew it was going to be a place that I circled back to and moved to later in life. So here I am.
Okay, nice. And later in life, and now you have a little friend to travel with.
Yes, a little person.
A
Yeah,
little
a little
person.
person.
Is your little person a good traveler?
Um, uh, mm, she's a
Okay.
little person. So at
Right.
times she's a great traveler. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there's little, things that I do to ensure that our travels are as easeful as they possibly can be. So, for example, the flight coming from London was a 12-hour flight to Mexico City. Like 11 and some change hour flight. And there was no way that I was doing that with a child awake.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did an overnight flight, for example.
Mhm.
So that meant that for the sort of 7 hours of that journey, she was kind of, out cold, which eased the transition. So,
Right.
yeah, if she would have been awake, if it was a daytime flight, I don't know that I'd be here.
I get it. I totally get it. Okay, so you and your little person traveling. You love Merida. Does she love Merida?
She does. It's been a challenging journey for her. We lived abroad previously, so we
Mhm.
lived in the South Atlantic previously on a small island, and that's where she spent the first kind of year and a half of her life, really. Um, so she's used to change, but we then went to London and lived in London for a year and a half, and then are now living in Mexico. So she's had lots of change, but she doesn't really necessarily remember all the change. And each time we get to a new place, she kind of makes, of course, new connections and attachments and gets used to the flow of life there. She very much loved London. It's where our family, majority of our family is situated. So moving to Mexico meant, a drastic change in a lot of the ties and attachments that she had in relationships. For example, she was used to seeing my mum like regularly, at least once, twice a week. And that is no more, and you can kind of bridge the gap with things like voice calls and video calls and so on, but it doesn't quite cut the mustard. So it's been a lot of getting used to for her. It's been a steep learning curve for her, but it's become easier the more that she's been able to establish her own life here, kind of independent of me, actually. So, for example, having her friends that are not, like my friends has a child.
Yeah.
She has her friends at school.
Okay.
That are not necessarily connected to me, So that's been important for her to establish her connections, and that's really helped her. So now she's really settled. It took a long time, and it's been, a bit like this. Merida is extremely transient. And so she's made a lot of connections with people, as have I, and then they've just gone. Right. You get the message to say, oh, we're leaving next week. And so there's been lots of losses, but like an infinite amount of gains as well.
Okay. Is Merida the only place you considered in Mexico?
No. Initially, actually, Merida was never on the cards. I had never heard of Merida pre yourself and Stephanie. Merida wasn't. Oh no, and another YouTuber called Amoya Shante, but Merida, was never on the cards. I fell in love with Oaxaca as a state, and particularly coastal Oaxaca. It's a beautiful, lovely, kind of very spiritually conscious, majoritively place to be. And it's really, I found it really kind of nourishing. I've got to plug my charger in, sorry. I found it really nourishing, spiritually, physically, etc. But that was great for me as an individual, and my needs pre-parenthood were very different. And if I didn't have a child, I would be in Oaxaca. But now having a child, I can really see that a lot of the infrastructure in Oaxaca is just not there for family life. It's really nice if you're kind of in your 20s or 30s and life is a bit more carefree and can, doesn't necessarily need so much of the infrastructure. So that kind of meant that Oaxaca couldn't really happen at this point. And I was aware that my daughter particularly needed a softer landing. And from my research on YouTube University, Merida just spoke volumes. It was, the place to be. And I came sight unseen. I hadn't been to Merida before, although I've been to Mexico, of course, multiple times. And I'm glad that I made the choice.
And it's a year later, you're still there?
I'm still here. Yes, still here in Merida. At times it's felt like by the skin of my teeth. But now we are definitely in a place where we're flourishing, and we are really, really living life in just a beautiful way. I don't want to portray a kind of false image of what thriving is for me, because thriving isn't, skipping in the park and, rainbows and sunshine every day. Thriving is just finding a way where you yourself on your personal journey are outside of a place of survival, and you're in a place where you're being continually nourished and that nourishment is happening on multiple levels. And that's what I'm finding here, more so than I ever did in London. Yeah.
Okay. As a woman who identifies as queer, what were the considerations that you took when choosing Merida?
So I didn't necessarily enter into this at any point thinking I'm a queer woman, what do I do? But more so thinking about, the kind of totality of my identity as a Black queer woman with a small child. So definitely safety was my primary concern. In London, there is a degree of freeness, and you can kind of walk around pretty much in most places and have some sense of safety with regards to sexuality and sexual identity. That is not the truth for everybody, but that was my experience in London majoritively. So safety was a major concern for me and my daughter. I'm somebody who presents in a particular way that's not necessarily the most effeminate all the time, and I am somebody who stands out a little bit. I've got a shaved head, I've got a tattoo on my head, I'm nearly 6 foot tall, I'm English. That level of safety was really paramount. Other considerations were if there was a queer community here, finding folk who were like me, which there is somewhat of a community here. Merida's kind of really spread out. And there are people who live here that you don't ever see, ever. There's people on YouTube and they're like, yes, I live in Merida. And I'm like, I've never seen this person in nearly a year. Where are you? So yeah, finding community here was really important. And I've kind of before I came, I tapped into a lot of the online groups. So like Facebook groups, etc., to find community before I came. So that was really important for me. And certainly in terms of being queer, seeing that, Merida has gay pride was an important thing, which happened a couple of weeks ago. And I think for any place really, if they're a location that has a pride, where people come out and are recognizing and to some degree celebrating gayness, queerness, etc., then there is some space for it. Whether there's space for it as a Black queer person is another thing, but there is at least some space for queerness here.
Okay. I think that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the difference between queerness being accepted for people who are who are from the area and for outsiders.
I think they're very different things, just because when you go to a new country, you don't know the lay of the land. It's not your terrain, and things like etiquette, who's accepted, etc. So for example, I know like in places like as Tracy was saying a couple of weeks ago, in like Puerto Vallarta, it's like a very much white gay male community. That's the accepted norm. But here in Merida, there's like little pockets of it. There's like the Black queer community, there's like the gay community, there's like I think, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think there's a kind of a trans community that's sort of growing.
Okay.
I think. I'm a parent, so I'm not all up in the in the social streets, but there's a lot that happens here in Merida.
Okay. Is there? You talk about different pockets, but like Mexico City and Puerto Vallarta are both like larger and have more history in that area, I think, than Merida. But they both are cities that have like a neighborhood, right? Like there's a location where if you want to find someone not someone in that sense, but like there's probably a gay bar. There's, you know what I mean? Like there are groups of gay bars and etc. Does Merida have any like central location like that? Or
so I think the term that you're searching for is the gay scene.
yes.
So for example, in London, typically the gay scene is like Soho or like Vauxhall, you know, but in Merida, so I haven't been out on the gay scene. I am a single parent, and going out after dark is non-existent. But from what I know, there are gay clubs, or at least there are kind of straight clubs that have gay nights or lesbian nights and put on particular events. I know that there's like a cabaret bar and things like that in Merida. There is not an area where they're located. So you're not going to go down a street and see like all the gay bars or anything like that in Merida. Yeah, as far as I've seen it, just that's just not how it is here. Merida, and I think a lot of other places in Mexico as well, is quite a melting pot. So, for example, a lot of Black people who are moving abroad are looking for where the Black people hang out.
Yes,
like it's Walmart. There is no place like where all the Black people go. Everyone is just spread out and living their little lives, and there are tiny little kind of mini communities that make up these kind of bigger neighborhoods, if you like. So there are literally people all over. There are literally bars all over. There are literally clubs all over. It's very, very spread out. So finding the community is really important because there's no central area, you won't know where the places are.
Right.
So if you're just coming to Merida, and you're like, I want to hit up a gay club. Yeah, good luck finding it. You need to find someone who knows where the gay bars are in Merida, and then they can direct you to where to go on what particular night. Which is what I found is you have to know somebody who knows about the thing
to find it. Okay.
To find it.
So it's there and it's public, but it may not be easily accessible to outsiders.
Yeah. But that's not a thing that's exclusive to gay places or queer places. I think that's just Mexico. The amount of times I've walked down the street and seen some old building that looks dilapidated and like it's falling to pieces, and the door just happens to be open and you kind of see this like beautiful like restaurant that serves like the most banging food, but you wouldn't know it was there unless someone told you about it or you just happened upon it.
And how would you ever find that on Google, right? Like it's that kind of thing. I was having that conversation yesterday with Tracy Collins and Michelle Wedderburn and Stephanie about how there are a lot of things that you think you would expect it. There's no yellow pages, right? There's no easy way to just say like, I would like to find this thing, and then here it is, because so many things are word of mouth, or if they are you have to know what it is before you can look for it online, right? You have to know that like not that there's a restaurant behind a creaky old door because there are thousands of them, but like the name of that, if you want to go, you got to already know the name. So yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Yeah, exactly. And even just to say, so I found it myself, a challenge using things like Google here, because all of my phone, for example, and my computer for work is linked back to the UK. So when I look on Google, it takes me automatically to google.co.uk.
Yeah.
And if I search for gay clubs in Merida, it brings up nothing, because it's not tapping into Google Mexico and finding local things. So, I'm not the most tech savvy person, but yeah, I've really struggled with that, just trying to find places on Google, because it takes me via the UK and back again. So,
okay. How has being queer impacted your experience in Merida in a way that you've noticed
um,
that you want to talk about? You don't have. You can always pass.
So I think I carry a particular energy when I just move about life. That's not a particularly inviting energy towards like male sexual attention so much. So I know, for example, there's a lot of Black females or just females that come to Merida and they're like, the men are all over me, you know, and they get a lot of attention and they get chied up all the time from like cis men. That doesn't happen for me. It doesn't happen at all. But I think that's because of the energy that I carry, which isn't necessarily a don't approach me energy. I'm very approachable, but I think, you know, I do just kind of carry an energy that's like, yeah, let's not. You know, for men. So yeah, that is very much present in how I kind of move about in Merida. But yeah, that's about it really. I don't yeah, being a queer person here, I think it's different for everybody that is queer because there's no like everybody presents differently. And if you're somebody who is much more masculine presenting, for example, then you may receive different connections and interactions, you know, initially with people. They may approach you in a particular way. I don't think it will ever be aggressive in Merida, ever. That's just not what the vibe is like here. But yeah, it's not one of those places where that kind of male sexual energy is just everywhere and it's like, yeah.
I get that. So I always laugh kind of about how, like, growing up in Southern California, we always heard about like the machismo of like the Latin men and how like, I don't know if it's sexually aggressive is the right word, but like how forward they are. And I'm like, either I'm bad vibes or like that was a lie. Like somewhere in there. Because I don't see it, and the women in my circle don't see it either, right? And so that part of it is like, maybe we've been told to expect something that like either the whole community has aged out of, right? Like maybe that used to be like that, and it's not like that anymore, or I don't know, but it's that like getting that I don't. It's not. It's
not. But I'm aware that there are some women who do experience that here. And don't get me wrong, I am not looking for it, of course. But it's just something that I notice, and something that I quite welcome. Like, yeah, leave me alone in that way. But I think, you know, for people who are straight that come here, that are, you know, that have heard on the streets that, as you say, Latino men are going to be all over you with roses and, you know, trying to serenade you. And no, it's not likely to be that way.
Good luck. Maybe. And I feel like the women who want that probably attract that.
Right.
Probably. Right. The women who are like, who want, and that's not I'm not saying that in a negative sense, but like we attract the things that we are looking for. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Absolutely. I just don't hear anybody talk about like those experiences at all.
No, but I think also as well, I think when straight people are dating, I think it's when it gets to the dating point that doorway to that sort of romanticism and that machismo is like opened up for people. I don't think it's how they present initially, right? So I think if you met someone, I don't know, on a dating app and then you went on a date, then you'd probably see that side. But yeah, it's not.
I've heard that's not happening on the
dating. Oh, really?
I don't know. Maybe it's different, but the city I have heard that's not. Even from Mexican women who are here, they're like, these dudes try to get me to pay on the date. Like, you're super young, you're cute. What? Good luck, girl. I don't know. Like, I don't.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
okay.
it's not an area I'm tapping into. So
Right.
yeah, that for me is like, yeah, I'm not the expert on that area at all.
Okay. So Kyoka had what was going to be my follow-up question, kind of. I was going to ask, have you been dating? But your girl said, put your business in the streets. So
hi, Kyoka, by the way, thanks. So yes, that is my absolute homie. I love Kyoka so much.
Pause. I'm taking credit for that. Because at the meetup, Kyoka was like, I don't do friends. I don't know what to do. And I was like, you have to leave here with a friend. And I don't know if you left as friends after the meetup, but you were both at the meetup in London together. And so
do you know what? You are 100% right. You are actually 100% right. And yes, we do owe you the credit for that, because what actually happened was we were sat across each other on this big long table. She was kind of further down the table. She was doing her awkward thing of looking at her phone, but I don't think she was really doing anything. And then you had kind of come in between us and sort of said, you know, don't leave here without connecting with somebody. And then you specifically said to Kyoka, and then I was like, okay, cool. And yeah, so we spoke because of you. That is true. Yes. And now we are really good friends. Yes.
Good. Now, I want everyone who watched Kyoka's video, when she gave me shit about doing that, she was like, you made me, look at this. Look at the friendships that have blossomed. When I give you shit, go do what I say to do. Like, I promise you. I am wrong, but I'm also right a lot. A lot. So I'm taking the credit for that. But we are not going to forget the original question. How was your experience dating Ben?
Oh yes, the question, I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
So dating in Mexico, in Merida, is womp womp. It's not great, to be fair. It's not awful, but it's I'm very aware that coming in as an expat, migrant, whatever you call yourself, you are you're a foreigner. And so there's like essentially kind of two communities you can tap into, friends wise, dating wise, connection wise, and that is the local community, or you can tap into the expat community also. The challenges come with tapping into the local community. One is language in a major way. So I speak Spanish, but I speak what I call janky Spanish, where I can communicate, I can understand, but it's not a flowing conversation. And so trying to connect with someone in that way who doesn't speak the same language makes it extremely difficult to get to know them in any kind of deep and meaningful way. You know, because you can ask the question, how are you? How is your day going? What are you doing? What do you like? But then the kind of more nuanced and, you know, what we would call in the UK, flanter, you know, like flirty banter, can't really happen because I don't have the words to be able to communicate in a particular way. So how I might connect with someone who speaks the same language as me, I can't do it with someone locally. So that kind of really has made it a challenge. So I've been up on the apps. Yeah, I've been on a couple of dating apps and have connected with people on there. But like I say, the language thing comes in as a barrier quite quickly when dating locals. And then trying to date within the expat community is interesting, because one, expat community is very transient. So you get the people that are kind, you know, I'm here for 3 days and looking to connect, and I'm like, no, bye.
Right.
So there's that, and Also, the types of people that kind of come through here are either people who have families. Merida is a very family orientated place. And so people are in their units already. Or they're much younger and they're kind of single people coming in, on this kind of digital nomad vibe. Neither of which is a category that I kind of would be tapping into or wanting to, connect with people in. So it's made it really difficult dating. And also the Black expat community is really small.
I was waiting for you to say that. The potential for it to get messy, right?
And I I remember saying to myself when I was much younger that I don't do on my doorstep, right? And I say it I didn't use the word do. It's a different word I use, but I won't say it on YouTube. But this idea that, if it gets messy, this community is small. It's tiny. And so you've got to be so discerning with who and how you connect with people here, because in London, you can, it takes you, 2-3 hours to get from one side of London to the other side. It's huge. You can get lost in there. There are an infinite number of people. So if something goes wrong with one connection, it's fine. But Merida.
And I can imagine not just because I'm assuming the Black expat queer community is even like, right? And so coming in that and having something, I want to be positive, but like the first person you date is going to be the love of your life and you're going to be together forever. But if that's not what happens, right? Then I remember when I first got to Mexico City, some of the men were like, someone showed up with a woman and the men were having a conversation about how like, oh yeah, I used to. And I was like,
wow. Wow.
The messiness, right? Like the messiness of that is not, whoa. And so does that mean that you have you done any dating that you think would be educational for the audience? Any dating experiences that we could glean some information from that could be helpful for the queer audience watching this now?
Yes. That would be educational. Yes, of course. That I'd be willing to share. Come on.
That's fine.
I would say that the dating in Merida, I would say take your time.
Okay.
For anyone who is coming here, because particularly if you're tapping into the expat community, there are a lot of people who come here who are very aware of being in solitude. They come on their own, or they come with their small, family or whatever. And a lot of people want to really connect really quickly. They want to make these really deep connections instantaneously. And the nature of being an expat in a foreign place, not knowing the lay of the land, not speaking the language so much, sometimes you can come together with someone in a way that feels like it is a deep and meaningful connection, when really all you're doing is you're finding solace in a foreign land together. Mm-hmm. And that can be, you can kind of misidentify that as, oh, this is my person. This is yes. When actually, no, you're just needing to experience and feel the feeling of being alone and work through that as a process, mm-hmm. As an internal process before you connect with people.
Okay.
So I'd say take your time, for sure. I would say be clear on what it is you want and what it is you don't want. The kind of global migrant community is one where there's a lot of really kind of different and liberal views a lot of the people who in places like London, the US, or wherever, would have been in like these little pockets, or wouldn't have been kind of in like sort of mainstream or hold mainstream opinions. These are more tend to be the people that would travel. So you tend to meet more people when you're on the road and an expat that have more liberal views, more are more open-minded, and that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. But you can get swept up in the kind of more liberal approaches to things, like dating, for example. So you need to really be clear on what it is that you want and stand firm in that, and not get swept up in like other people's ways of doing stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but hopefully.
No, so 2 points after you said that. When you started talking, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot you were a psychotherapist. We should probably talk about that at some point, because it was very like, well, clinically, right? But your friend decided to call you out and say, we love a good, well thought out, evasive answer.
Kyoka, love you.
She's on you today.
Love you.
But it was one of those like,
it's a truthful answer.
My work bag.
No, do you know what? It's a truthful answer.
Yes,
because
yes, understood.
Putting it in another way, that maybe doesn't sound so clinical. People will come with their stuff, and people will come with living their lives in certain ways that won't necessarily work for you. And it can be so easy in your wanting to find connection and community. It can be so easy to get swept up in other people's ways of doing stuff that don't actually match or align with who you are and how you really want to be. For example, there's a lot of, and this isn't necessarily just about expat communities, but there's a lot of people now who are polyamorous, right? And that's great if you're polyamorous. But if you're monogamous and you meet someone and now, because you've met someone who is into polyamory and you like them, and a lot of people are doing that, and now you're like, oh, maybe I'll enter into that, but you haven't thought about it for yourself, then you can end up in connections that really don't actually serve you, and that's not me saying there's anything inherently wrong with polyamory at all. Not at all. Thanks, Kyoka.
And she's not going away. Kyoka, I expect you to stay on it. Stay on her. We're doing this together. Yeah. Kyoka's the guest interviewer that you can't see on camera.
Love you. It's right. It's okay. Because everything comes full circle, my friend.
Okay. Speaking of what you do professionally.
Yes.
Can we talk about your practice a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead. Of course.
Tell me more.
So I am a psychotherapist. I have been for 12 years now. And yeah, I work with people online. So part of me moving abroad was to support myself and to set up my own business so that I could live abroad in a way that is free for me and where I am actually thriving. So I set up my private practice, which is a remote practice. And I provide psychotherapy and psychotherapeutic coaching for people all over the world.
Okay. Are these people? So you say all over the world? Is it also people from anywhere? Because I know people, and I particularly know a lot of Americans, women who are always looking for a therapist and can never find a therapist. So do you see anyone, no matter where they're from or no matter where they live?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I know in the US it's very different when you're a therapist. I think you can only practice in a particular state.
Yeah.
And you're kind of confined to that. But yeah, it's very different for us. We don't have those same constraints. So yes, I provide therapy with people all over the world. There are a few countries that my insurance doesn't permit me to work with people from. They're like, I've never encountered people from those countries wanting to work with me anyway. But yeah, so I work with people all over. I have a few clients from the US who I see quite regularly. I've got a couple of coaching clients from the US as well. But the majority of my clients have been from the UK. But yeah, now that I'm on the road and time zones and things, so I'm having more clients come in from the US and randomly Australia. But yeah.
Okay. Are you open to new clients now?
Yes. Yes, I am. Yeah. So I predominantly work with Black females who are looking to make big shifts in their lives. Whether you're experiencing anxiety, depression, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether you're just kind of feeling stuck, whether you're wanting to move abroad and are not knowing how to get over the things that you need to get over to move abroad, for sure. So you can jump onto my website, which, yes, I can see below, and have a look for ways to connect with me. So I provide psychotherapy, but I also provide psychotherapeutic coaching, which is coaching, what I like to call coaching on steroids. So it's coaching, it has all the elements of coaching, achieving goals, making sure that you are focused, there's accountability in there, but it also is completely underpinned by psychotherapy. So psychotherapy looks at patterning and behaviors from the past. We go to like the root causes of things and we look at how that's informing what's happening now. And so I bring elements of that into the coaching. So it's not just about having a goal and working towards it. It's having a goal, working towards it with the understanding of what has caused you to behave in the ways and think in the ways that you currently do.
Okay. That's helpful. Without fail.
Mexico.
It's Mexico.
It's Mexico.
They're not going nowhere. It's just Mexico.
Yeah.
What are some things you have learned? I know you've lived abroad before.
Yes.
But what are some things you have, well, let's say the whole journey, you've learned on your journey living abroad that you would not have known if you had never left London? I'm going to step away for a second and you can.
Okay, so what have I learned that I would not have known? I have really learned how to I've really learned how to make things happen, and I've really dug deep to find a sense of resourcefulness that I never knew I was capable of doing. So, for example, there's nothing like being in a different country, needing to access a service and not having the language to communicate what your needs are. So yeah, there's been ways that I've been able to kind of pull magic out of the hat, which I think as Black women and as parents, we kind of do anyway, but living in another country, you kind of find ways of doing it that just takes it to a whole nother level, to be honest. So for example, when my daughter fell, we were getting ready to go out and she fell and she hit her face, sort of face planted the floor. And obviously it's a head injury and I needed to get her immediate support and help. And there's that sudden realization of, I don't even know the emergency services telephone number. I need to get my daughter medically checked out immediately. How do I do that? And yeah, so having to just like make it happen, and without fail, it's happened, time and time again. I think my ability to stand in the truth of myself, like to really stand in who I am in a foreign place. So, for example, I am, like I said, I stand out physically. In my environments, I can't quite blend in here in the background so much, and finding the peace in that, there's no hiding. And yeah, just kind of finding peace in that when I've been in situations where I've not felt entirely comfortable all the time, or, you know, sometimes when you go to a new place and you want to just kind of, well, I want to blend in the background or whatever, but just allowing myself, like, I stand out right now and I'm just going to allow myself to stand out. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. I think also as well, the connections back home that I've maintained and have been so meaningful for me. I think when you're living amongst your friends and family, it can be really easy to kind of either take for granted or get complacent in the connections that you have. You know, people are just always there. And when you live abroad, you kind of have to be much more intentional in the way that you connect with people. And I've really been doing that. That's been such an important part of me being abroad, is having really, really strong connections with the people that I've had back home. And I didn't know how much I needed and relied upon those connections. For example, being in Merida, I'm, as far as I know, or as far as I've encountered, I'm the only Black British person here. There's a big Black community, but it is 95% Black Americans and Black Canadians. So tapping into that community and making friends and connections in that community is lovely, but it's still not the same, you know. So connecting with people back in London, back in the UK, who get me when I say particular words or who understand my thinking in particular ways is really important. Yeah, I think that's a point that is greatly underestimated, actually. The assumption that when you come to Merida and you find community and you find friends and things are nice, that you're just going to meet people who get you and that you know, you have this shared history with, but you don't. I'm very aware that, yeah, being from the UK, there's a lot. Say if I'm in a group of people, sort of Black expats, at an event or something, sometimes there'll be conversations that they're having about things and it goes completely over my head. I have no idea what they're talking about because I don't have the same shared history that they have. You know, it could be something as simple as them talking about a TV show or talking about, you know, something to do with their local politics in their state or whatever it is. And I can't really contribute to the conversation because I'm kind of this outsider-ish in that group. I'm always welcomed and I'm never kind of, you know, alienated or isolated because of me being British, but it does bring a different layer to the connections. This kind of, it's like this weird secondary otherness that kind of kicks in. So I'm not Mexican. I'm a foreigner when it comes to Mexicans, but that's kind of given. But then in the Black community, I'm also not a Black American. I'm not Black Canadian. So I'm kind of on the fringes of that as well. Yeah, and that's, I think I've deviated from Rashida's original question.
Actually, it leads me right to the question that I was going, when I heard you talking, the question I was going to ask you, which is, do you, on a day-to-day basis, not every day, but like, are there moments where you feel that you're being othered by the local community? You've said a couple times that you don't necessarily blend in. So do you feel like that has impacted your experience?
No.
Okay.
Not in any real negative way, other than okay, if I go to Centro and I try to buy something in Centro, I'm going to get gringo priced, right? But I
Everybody,
feel like that's kind of a given, you know, it's expected. But kind of on a daily basis, I think at this point, because I have my routine and I frequent the same places locally, they know me. They know that I'm the random Londoner, you know, that's in the community. So no, Mexicans really have this fantastic way of minding their own business. And that sounded like passive aggressive. It's not.
No.
They just have this way of life where it's like, it don't bother me. Do your thing.
Yeah.
You know, just do your thing. As long as it's not causing any problems, as long as it's not illegal, do your own
As
thing.
long as you're like, I do find, but if you are trying to bring attention to yourself, they will give you that attention.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you're in any way, it's how I feel when I see women who are like anywhere, who are like, I can't believe all these people stop me to take photos, but like you got an 18-foot afro. And you're wearing like a really like large dress when everybody else is wearing like jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. In that case, people are going to like you, and not that a large afro or a big dress are enough, like should mean that you're trying to get attention, but like you in Central, baby girl, you know not to wear this long dress out here unless there's no, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing to do that requires what you're doing.
Yes.
So yeah, people are taking photos of you, and people are asking to be in their photos. It's so rare. I see people kept asking me to get in their photo, and I'm like, it's so rare that happens to me. Also, it could be my energy, but also like they just try to go to the market just like I'm trying to go to the market. I'm on the metro. They're probably like, who is whatever. She on the metro, I'm on the metro. Nobody cares, right?
Exactly.
But you can easily, like, if I'm in a large group of Black people, then that sometimes brings attention. Because like,
okay,
where did it all come from? Right? Sometimes. I'm not all the time. Especially in like in Mexico City, not really, but if I go to a smaller town but isn't used to seeing a lot of foreigners come in, that's when it can happen.
Yeah.
Most of the time people are just like, I've seen a bunch of y'all. I don't care.
Yeah. And I think also in Merida, they're so used to seeing Black people now.
Yeah.
You know, they're used to it. We've been here for a while. The community's growing. And I think for the most part, people aren't fazed by our presence. Then, do you know, one of the most beautiful and bizarre feelings that I had when I came to Merida was I was walking down the street, and it was in the evening, and this lady, more mature woman, maybe in her sort of 60s or 70s or something, was walking towards me on the road, and she didn't grab her handbag. She didn't pull her belongings closer to herself. She didn't try to cross the road. She didn't avoid eye contact. She just saw me as another person. And coming from a place where I'm so used to people being intimidated just by the way that I look, coming to Merida and people not being intimidated by me was so freeing and so refreshing. People notice Black people more in other countries where there's a fear of Black people. In Mexico, majoritively, I think, maybe in the more, you know, sort of smaller, sleepy towns, it might be different. I don't know. But certainly in Merida, people ain't afraid of you. They're not worried that you're going to steal from them, that you're going to harm them, that you're going to do something bad to them. They're just meeting you on a human to human level, generally. And that's been so lovely to experience, you know, just being seen as a person in Mexico. So, you know, when you ask me questions about being queer and being Black and stuff, and it's like, they don't really care. Like they don't really care here. They just let you do your thing, like I say, as long as you're not bothering anybody or causing any kind of nuisance or interference. Although one thing they do continue to do here is if you have a child, they will try to touch your child's hair.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That is a thing. That really
But
is.
not your hair, right? No one's
Not
ever tried to touch my hair here.
No, no, no. They
Yeah,
don't try to touch my hair.
I wonder how much of that is just that they, without, as I say this, I know it's going to come out as a stereotype, and I apologize in advance. But like, the culture is very attracted to children.
Yes.
In the like, we are a community and we take care of everyone's children. And I wonder if they touch Mexican children in the same way, right? Like the hair being the closest, the head being the closest. You know what I mean? I just don't know. I know that's not to diminish that. I just have never, I don't go out with children. I don't interact. I don't know how they interact with children, but I know that like children are a draw. Like I walking down the street the other day, like I just spoke to someone's child the other day. I've been here a long time. And Lenny was just like, yeah, like it was like, it's what she expected. Like the child was at the street side little booth, and she knew the child was like bringing in the customers, right? Like just sitting there in a little car seat or whatever she was sitting in, stroller, I don't remember. But like we're used to in this culture being like you know, when you're in America, I don't know about London, but like you could be walking a dog and the people around you have no idea what you look like, but they know what your dog, like your dog,
Yes.
like they know your animal. You're relevant, but your dog. That's not with children or dogs, but there's a little bit of that here. But like you as an adult are irrelevant, but your child is so cute, right? And so I'm wondering if that also happens to, if they're used to interacting with Mexican children like that as well, like the head being, you know, I don't know. What do you think as a mom?
I think they are, as you say, they are a very, very, very family orientated people. You know, they are all about family. And I think because of that, they really appreciate the importance of children. And they really do give children space here. So, for example, when you go to a lot of restaurants here, they have a separate play area within the restaurant for the children. You know, we went to one the other day, and they not only had like a separate level for the kids to play in, but they also had nannies up there that were looking after the children while, you know, the grown-ups eat. But that's just the culture.
Yes.
They recognize the importance of children, whereas in the UK and the US, it's like there's more of that mentality of children are there to be seen and not heard. And they're kind of, and I think we're also more aware of the kind of hyper aware, I think, of the need to keep children safe. And so I think because there's been so many threats to children in the US and the UK, and that's not to say it's not here in Mexico either, but I think we've responded in a different way in the US and the UK. That is very much like hands off kids, don't even. Whereas they don't have that here. That kind of, you know, oh no, I just shouldn't even touch that child. It just doesn't occur to them.
Like this is a stranger.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't occur to them like this is somebody else's child and I shouldn't touch them. And I want to point out and be clear that no one has ever tried to touch my child in any other way other than like, oh, and it's always like the same way. It's like, oh, chiquitita, and they're like, touch her, you know. But it is a very it's a delicate one to try to handle, actually, with the hair thing, for sure. I've developed my own strategy for dealing with it, but everyone has their way.
Do you mind sharing what that strategy is?
You don't have to do as I say, but I'm very much aware of the need to demonstrate to my child the autonomy that she holds over her body. That's my primary thoughts going into things. So I always, when someone tries to reach and touch my child, I always immediately say no, no tocar, don't touch. But then I will engage that person. If sometimes they just walk on by, but then I might engage that person in conversation if they're still there. And I will then engage my child in the conversation about actually is touching appropriate, but not in like a weird kind of therapy kind of way, but just like, do you want to be touched? Do you want? And she always says no, you know, but I want her to understand that she can say no in those situations. And also for that grown up to then realize that, oh, okay, there is a boundary there.
Okay.
But it's not okay for me to touch the child. So yeah, so I always say, I know a lot of people feel really bad and don't intervene when someone's trying to touch their child's head, because it's usually a cute old lady or or something. But my child needs to know more than that woman needs to feel comfortable.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I remember when I had I was with my friend's twin daughters in a grocery store, and some man walked up and I was like, I will murder you right here. Like, I don't know what's happening, but like,
yeah,
they can barely. Why are your hair? And this is in America where we don't necessarily touch children in the same way. So I was like, what made you think this was going to be? Keep it down the aisle. Yeah. I was like, absolutely not. I think mom had walked away for something, and I was like, you see me?
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Do you know what? Mexico, for kids, it's a different. My child is extremely outgoing.
Okay.
She is an extrovert. And so she's learning Spanish, so she's got quite a good command of Spanish at this point. And so she can engage people in conversation, and she does. And what they usually do in Mexico, I've found, is they won't even want to engage me. They'll just want to engage my child. And so, you know, the amount of times I'm like, are you sure you're trying this whole full-blown conversation that someone's trying to have with my child? And it's usually innocent. It's just them kind of, you know, being really interested in a small being who has a lot to say. And she's very articulate and engaging. So, but yeah, I always have to kind of intercept in there. And but Mexicans are friendly. They're a friendly nation. They're a connecting nation. They like to connect.
They like to connect when you are open to connecting. But like, if you're, like I said, if you're just walking down the street, like you said the same thing. If you're just walking down the street most of the time, unless you have something like a puppy or a child, they don't even, like, whatever. They don't even see you.
They don't really care. They don't really, and it's not that they don't care in like a cold way.
No.
They're just like minding their business and getting on with life. You know, if you need help, 9 times out of 10, they will help you. But you need to open the doors to that help. You know, if I get lost and I ask somebody, where is such and such a place? Here, they'll probably walk me to that place, you know. But if I stand there kind of just peering around, chances are someone's not necessarily going to come up to me and ask me if I'm lost.
Oh, I have that experience. If I could be on the corner scrolling on my phone, reading an email, and someone's going to be like, need help? Like in Spanish, like, are you lost? And I'm like, no, I'm writing a work email. I think that's also very Mexico City because they don't, and it's been a while since this has happened. I think because it wasn't a tourist town for a very long time.
Right.
No one is standing on their phone on the corner, right? Like something must be wrong. And so they'd be like, hey, you need, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Like I got this. But yeah, it's I feel like most of Mexico, in my experience, has been a great place to kind of not disappear into, but kind of like melt, I'll say, melt into without like feeling that your presence is a problem.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with that 100%. And I also think, you know, going back to the queerness, it's the same for being what is perceived as outwardly queer as well. I recently went to Chedraui, which is like a supermarket here. It's quite a big supermarket here. And I was in Chedraui, and this guy had on these most spectacular, like, they must have been stilettos, like this high. And they were like, you know, that sort of silver holographic sort of.
Yes.
And
Okay.
he was just doing his shopping. And I was the only one who was staring. I
Yes.
was the only one. And I wasn't staring because, oh my God, I was staring because, wow, oh my God, okay.
Right.
How are you doing that, for one? How are you walking and pushing your trolley in them stiletto heels? And like, just, I didn't know how to read it. But nobody batted an eyelid. Everyone was just like, yeah, there's a guy in 6-inch glittery stilettos in Chedraui.
I have a theory. And it's a theory that particularly I think works in the city, but it also might work all over. Growing up, we always heard about how unsafe Mexico, like as someone who lived in Southern California, how unsafe Mexico was, blah, 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 the crime, the cartels, this and that. And Mexico City was not a very safe place in the 80s and the 90s and all that. And I think there are remnants of a time where you needed to mind your own business because you ain't need to see what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, you were not going to be a witness. You were not going to be a witness of whatever happened. So like culturally, there's a lot of like blinders. I know someone's gonna come on here and tell me I'm wrong.
That makes sense.
I think I might be right about this. There's a lot of cultural blinders that don't exist, and maybe it's not noticeable here to the people here because if you haven't lived in a place like America where someone will be like, why are you walking down this street, where they feel like they have the right to ask you that question, like just because you are less than, right? Like there's also that element too.
Yeah,
people are just like, I know what's going.
Yeah, I like that theory. Yeah.
It's my theory. This is my. I'm gonna write it in my book one day.
No, I think there's that has
there's something
absolutely there's some degree of truth to that for sure, because you know in certain times, seeing things
I see that almost went on over there
had big consequences, and I think they do.
I think that's been passed down a lot. I went to a restaurant once. I was eating on the sidewalk outside, and this woman, I've told the story on this channel before. This woman hopped out of a large SUV. 2 or 3 cars stopped. One woman hopped out of a large SUV. She had a bodyguard in front of her. She had a bodyguard behind her. It was a 1-lane road, so the cars circled, but like they stopped traffic when they stopped her. She went inside, she did her shopping. The bodyguard is on the mic telling the cars to come back. The cars come back. She walks out. She's wearing an all-white suit, all white from head to toe. Right? Like, and nobody else is looking. Meanwhile, I'm like, what's happened? Like, who is this? Oh, I'm curious. I'm staring because like 3 cars. Right? Bodyguards ahead of you, behind you.
Wow.
You're not even, she wasn't on the sidewalk for like more than 3 seconds because she did not leave the store connected to the restaurant until the drivers were like, your car is outside.
Wow.
And I said to my waitress, who was that? And she was like, who was who? I didn't. I said, the lady in all white. She was like, oh, I didn't see her. And I was like, yep, I'm not wrong.
Wow.
My theory is not wrong.
Wow.
She said, oh, I didn't see her. And I'm like, she blocked up the road stopped. She's wearing all white from head to toe in a town where people don't usually wear white. Whatever.
Yeah, she was somebody.
She was and the fact that she was like, not even like, I don't know who she was, but like, I never saw her at all. Be my waitress's response. I was like, I'm right about that theory. Y'all are like, it's not my business. I don't know what happened. Which I think is also interesting when we consider like crime now, right? Like if you were a victim of a crime, would there be witnesses? I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't. I would hope so. I think that because they are helping people,
Yes.
they do help, and they won't see somebody suffer.
Mm-hmm.
From what I see, I think they would step in.
I
And not
think you
necessarily
might
step in,
get,
but I think they would provide some kind of small support, whether they have kind of more sort of community
mm-hmm.
responses to crimes. I don't know. I haven't been a part of that. I don't plan to. But yeah, I haven't heard of anybody being kind of left sort
I
of
feel,
fend for themselves.
and I think you're right about that nuance in the fact that I think people would, if you were a victim of a crime, you would definitely be helped. Would
Mm.
anyone put their name on the police report about being a witness to that? That's where I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know about that. But I feel like if I like someone would give me money to get home, someone would make sure I got all of those things, you know, if I got
Yeah.
mugged, someone would do someone there would be like, how can we help you? Right? How can we take care of you? If I was hurt, someone would take me to a doctor or call a doctor for me.
Yeah.
But anybody testifying, I just don't know about that. So
I
let's
don't.
hope we're never victims of crime in Mexico.
Yes,
Or
that's
anywhere around the world.
the energy that I'm putting out anyway. Is
Yeah. You know, okay, so Mo says that's scary because if people are making it a point to see their surroundings, anything could happen to folks who are in danger. I think part of the reason this works now and the reason, like most of us who say we live in Mexico feel very safe, is that the danger levels aren't what they are back home, right?
yeah.
The danger levels just aren't, the danger is around, right? But the danger levels aren't what they are back home.
Exactly.
And for people who historically didn't fare well if they saw something they didn't want to see, like that's a risk I have to take knowing that I live here and people have blinders on. But like I said, I've never needed anything and not had someone try to help. Like even if I'm in a store and I'm struggling with something, someone will be like, girl, she said so and so, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, can you help me with the rest of this? And someone's willing, like, even if it's just a translation, there's someone willing to help. They're typically helpful people in a way that I'm not used to in the US, especially helpful to immigrants and people who don't speak the native language in a way that you don't see in a lot of other places in the world.
Yes.
But also because it's not scary to people who live here generally because the date, like there is crime, but it's not at the levels you see in like America and the UK.
For sure. I mean, again, to put it into context, this is the second safest city in the Americas. Second to, I think it's Quebec or somewhere. But it's a very, very safe city. And like Rashida said, there is crime still here, but it's not the same. People do go out of their way. So I was in an Uber and I was going to drop my daughter to school, left the phone in the Uber, then on my way home, realized that I'd left my UK phone in this Uber. So, and this Uber's long gone. And I wasn't so trusting that, you know, just going through the app and reporting something missing, that it was going to come back to me. So I'm sat there and I'm like, my world is on this phone. I need it back because this is like my access to work, my access to my family, everything. And so I got into the Uber and said to the driver, like, you know, I was asking him, how do I get my phone back? What do I need to do? Yada, yada. And he was saying, use the app. And then he was like, you know, he kind of said it in Spanish. He was like, let's go. And he just took off. So what he had me do was look, you know, on the Find My Phone app. I was on there and I could see my phone, my other phone, like
and you
driving
followed
around the city. The taxi guy was like, let's go. And he was just like driving me in this taxi, trying to chase down my phone. And I was just like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. And yeah, we drove around for ages. Like we kept missing it because the taxi that we were trying to chase kept going to the next stop and the next stop. So we didn't actually get there in the end. But for a good maybe 20 minutes, this taxi driver just took it upon himself to drive me around after after my phone, you know, and he wasn't doing it in an energy of frustration or this silly foreigner or, oh my gosh. He was like, let's get this phone. Like, he was more eager than I was.
Excited. It's a challenge.
He was like, yes. And, you know, so, and in the end, I was like, it's okay. You know, I actually managed to get in contact with the driver through my phone, you know, and spoke to him that way. But this guy would fully have chased down my phone all around this city until I got it back. And he didn't need to do that. He really didn't need to. He could have just been like, not my problem, which would have been the response in the UK for sure. No one's taking your phone down in the UK. That's gone off.
Did you get the phone back?
I did. Yeah. Within about half an hour.
Okay.
The first driver had come back to my house and returned the phone to me.
That's awesome. Okay, so in Mexico City, I feel confident that it's very unlikely that I will physically be a victim of a crime. Like, someone's probably not going to steal my purse from me. I know people who have had someone like go in, like do a little spill something on them and while wiping it off, go in their purse, grab their wallet. It happens in the tourist areas. It's rare, but it happens. But a phone in the back of a car, sweetie, that's
goodbye.
Bye. I hear occasionally that things like that are returned, but 9 times out of 10, phones are big things here that go missing a lot.
Right.
There's a lot of, like, not a lot of, but there's enough petty crime like that. Like, if your phone is on the table at a restaurant, your phone might not be on the table 30 minutes later, right? Enough petty crime that, like, you have to be a little bit more attentive. Yes. And it's funny, we have a big market here, and people from phones come to this big market from all over the country. Wow. And so there's always people in Mexico City groups asking if someone will someone go get my phone from, I can tell you where it is. And I'm like, you want someone to go get your phone from someone who's involved? I'm calling it lowercase organized crime. Like, wow. So if your phone was stolen in Merida and it ends up in a shop in Mexico City, there's an organization to this crime.
Exactly. Right? That you don't want to get involved in.
You're not going to.
Not worth it. Just let it go. Let it go.
I saw one time one woman said, it'll make a good YouTube video for someone.
Do you know what? There was a guy who did that. His phone, and I can't remember who he is, but this American guy, white American guy, and his phone got stolen. And through the the cloud, the person, he realized his phone had ended up in like China or somewhere. And he was seeing through his, on his new phone, these pictures of this person's family coming up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, all of this. And they actually managed to get into contact with each other. The American guy flew over to China and they actually became friends in the end. But this guy had the phone for, I think it was like a year or something. And he kept getting pictures of this new person's family and work and all sorts of things. But yeah, his phone got stolen. And but me, no.
And that is probably someone who purchased a stolen phone, who I would be less afraid of than walking into the store, the operation of someone who is processing stolen phones. Right? She was like, it'll be like, you can go there and confront them. It'll make a good video.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
You go get your phone. You want me?
So this is also the other thing that people need to understand when they're coming to other countries, is that you are not in your home country. And the way that you can conduct yourself in your home country, the consequences may be very different in your new country. I don't know the full extent of consequences of getting the police involved in situations or, community reprisal. I have no idea what would happen in certain situations, and I don't want to find out. So, in the UK, if something happened and I had to respond in a particular way, I know the likely outcome of that situation, who would be involved, what would happen next, what I would need to do to keep safe, etc., etc. In Mexico, I've got no idea. I've got no idea what the consequences are. And so I think people need to kind of keep themselves in check a little bit with regards to how they're dealing with people. I've seen people handle locals in inappropriate ways. And, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm always like, you don't know what the consequences of that action is. Why? Why do that? You can't, you know, it's the same thing as like Karens, you know, that kind of feeling that they can kind of
do whatever
situation and do what they want because they don't have consequences. No, love, this is Mexico. You just don't know the consequences, and I guarantee you don't want to find out.
No. All right. So there's some banter in the comments about like seeing versus not seeing, and I think Sydney explains it the best. I think people make a point of not seeing their surroundings but are very aware. So like I think what we're experiencing, those of us who live in Mexico, is that they're seeing everything just the way we're seeing everything. They just don't. They're not going to let you know they saw it, right? They see it. They saw that man in the stilettos, but they're not going to be staring at him and pointing and taking photos like someone might do in the U.S. Right? That's the difference. They see him. They see me when I'm walking down the street.
Of course.
Sometimes I might get a second glance, but I'm not going to get like a jaw-dropped stare like I would in other countries, right? They're going to be like, I saw her. I'm not going to let her know I saw her, right? Like that's it. That woman, she saw that woman in all white blocking traffic.
Of course she did.
She's not gonna tell me she saw her. She's not her coworker, homegirl in the back, who she goes way back with. Yes, they're in the back talking about it.
Talk to it about
Me, she don't know me. She don't trust me. She just right. And so there's that. They see everything. Like they're not blind. They see everything. But what is the upside of them letting you know they see everything, right? In America, and in the UK, I've experienced too. There's a bit of that, like we're just gonna stare. We're just gonna like the photos have like I'm taking a photo of a stranger and posting it online. There's less, not that there's none, but there's less of that here, right? There's less of the intrusion in your personal space when you're abroad. The less of like you don't have they're giving more people the right to privacy in public. I think that's a good way to put it. That's
a good way to put it. Yeah. Oh, they know. Don't get me wrong. I live in a very Mexican neighborhood, and there's no other foreigners in my neighborhood, let alone any other Black people in my neighborhood. I'm the only one. So I can guarantee that the majority of the people around here, and I've been here for nearly a year, right? So the majority of the people around here know who I am. They might not know my name and all of those kind of things, but they for sure know I'm here.
You're the tall Black English lady.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't, you know, they might not acknowledge my existence, but they know. Of course they know.
They see you.
You know, but that's not a problem though. That's absolutely not a problem.
And they talk about you.
Yes.
They I know. They're like, did you see her with like they talk about your daughter? I know. You know, some abuela on the block is like, that baby is so cute. Every time she sees her come by, she's just not gonna say it in your face.
Exactly.
Well, maybe about your daughter, maybe, right? But like, there's very much the like you get to be in public as you are without the weight of anyone else on you, unless. You know, I think there are edge cases to that. Most of the time people are like, I see her, I don't see her. Like the staring is very, very rare.
Yeah.
I was with a friend the other day and we had a family look at us as we were like, look for longer than is usual. And we both decided those people were tourists from somewhere else. Don't know where. But like, it's 5 of you. Some of you are late teens, some of you are in your 20s, some of you are in your 50s. You're walking through a tour, like an expensive part of town, eating ice cream at like 5 p.m. You don't live here. You don't live here. You're like, I don't know where you're tourist from, but you're tourist. Like there's also that, like in a lot of places, I try when I travel not to ascribe every interaction I have as like, this is how these people in this place are, because a lot of places where I'm a tourist, there are a whole bunch of other tourists too from other places, right? And so it's like, if I'm, or even if I live here, I live in Mexico City, right? But like, there are a lot of tourists here from all over. They could be from anywhere in Latin America.
Yes.
I don't know where they're from.
Yeah.
But the way they're not from here. What was that?
Sorry, I said a lot of Mexicans travel. Like,
yes,
Merida is a kind of mini vacation spot for a lot of Mexicans. So especially when the weather's nicer, at the moment it's pretty grim, but a lot of people from other parts of Mexico will come to Merida to holiday or vacation, as you put it. And so then you might encounter a different kind of energy from those people, but you might not know that they're foreigners because they're still Mexican.
Yeah.
You know, or not foreigners, but you know, outsiders from Merida.
Out from the city. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're supposed to be talking about Pride Month. And we got a little distracted, but I love this combo. Actually, there's a couple good comments I want to talk about.
I can't see the comments. Why can't I?
You can't?
Oh, there they are. Oh.
Okay. Kelly was the sweetest. She's one of the best people to ever meet. How y'all know each other? I'm trying to put this 2 and 2 together.
Kelly, so we have a Black Women's Accountability Group where we meet up on a regular basis. These are women who are in the community, and we connected on our starting up of our YouTube channels. And so we have an accountability group where we meet up on a regular basis, educate each other, share, support, just love on each other generally. And yeah, so that's how.
Which community, when you say they're in the community?
The community. So we met off the back of one of Stephanie's challenges.
That's what I thought. That's what I was asking about. I was like, there's, because y'all not, I was like, location, when she wrote that comment, I was like, location wise, I can't. I said, there's something there. There's something that connects them that I can't
there
see.
Is. Okay. Do you know what? It's so strange. Before I kind of moved abroad, and when I started going online to sort of research my move abroad and stuff, it really felt like there was like this really interconnected community of people. And it was like, how do I get inside that? Because I want to know how to move abroad. I want to know what I need to know, and sharing all the information. And then, but once you're kind of let in, it's wonderful.
Yes. So Stephanie's YouTube challenge, for anyone who wants to do it. I don't know when she's doing it next. If she's still here, she can drop the info. I don't know it. Details are not my thing. I know
she is here. Look, she just said I get the credit.
She does. She gets the credit. Yeah, that's how you form community. Like if you feel like an outsider, that's how you form community. Like you get in groups where the people you want to be are.
Absolutely, and there's a solid group of like kick-ass Black females who are just making waves in what they're doing. So there's Brown Girls Invest too, who will get your money right, and gives Black women solid investing advice, because she's done it herself. She's done the thing. Kelly, who has her channel, and she does about
real estate
in Tampa, and obviously yoga. And there's another lady called Her Soul Fit.
Okay.
And she provides weight loss advice for Black menopausal women, which is just not spoken about enough.
She was here. She's still here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's Jennifer, right?
Jennifer. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then there's Stephanie. There's a Stephanie as well, who also provides support for like retired Black women.
Okay.
Yeah, she's living her life.
Look at this. Join communities.
It's beautiful.
And so we just finished the Get Your Next 3 Clients challenge. And one of the things I said in there, and I say it frequently, is that while I don't want you to pay for friends, sometimes joining a program for access to people who could be lifelong collaborators, accountability buddies, and friends is a great way to go. You know, it's a good thing to get at conferences. It's a good thing to get when you're in. Stephanie does this all the time. She'll join a program just to meet the people in the program. She's like, I don't really want to learn anything, but I think there are going to be some cool women in here.
Right. And so what's important, right? If you're trying to do a new thing, you can't stay amongst the same people who are not doing that thing and have no idea how to do that thing.
And are not interested in that thing.
Not interested in it because they're going to talk from their perspective. They're going to maybe try to support you, but from their perspective. If I'd have gone to my friends and said, hey, I'm looking to go to Mexico, some advice, they'd be like, cartel?
Yes.
Oh.
With your child?
Children's services, you know, it's like that would have been their perspective. But being in community with people who are doing the thing or have done the thing, that's it. I think there's that saying of like, you know, you want to be the least intelligent person in the room? Or if you're the most intelligent person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So you want to be in a space where you're learning from people who have already done it and are already doing it. So yeah, being in the community, you know, jumping on board with my coaching or my therapy services, absolutely.
Okay.
Get you there.
All right. So now I know that all of these great comments are like your family. Like the very
no, it's okay. So that's implying that all the people in the comments.
No, I should say I have starred some comments that I was like are really, really good. And some questions that were really good. And I'm like, oh, like because they understand your journey enough to know like what questions will get good answers out of you.
Oh.
And that's a good thing to have in friends, right?
Or if they're just digging.
Listen, we're going to talk about Kyoka later. All right. Jennifer asks, would you still move to Mexico knowing what you know now? Any regrets? Or are you convicted that you are where you're supposed to be? I'll give that one to you.
Yes. The only thing that I would do differently is I would have moved a lot sooner. I spent a year planning this move, essentially. And I did a lot of things and put a lot of things in place that I didn't really even need to. I think I overplanned, actually, which is why I support people with their move abroad and not doing the same thing that I did. But I would definitely come to Mexico again, for sure. I fell in love with Mexico a couple of decades ago. So I would definitely come to Mexico. And no, I don't have any. I think my only regret, and maybe it's not a regret, but what I probably would have done differently is I would have afforded myself the opportunity to travel, to be a bit more nomadic within Mexico before I settled down in Merida. Because now I'm in the swing of life and I'm doing my thing. So taking my daughter out to school to go to another city for 2 weeks is a bit more, it's not impossible, but it's a bit more of a challenge than it would have been after I first came, before we kind of settled. You know, we could have traveled around a lot easier. So yeah, that's the only thing I would have changed, but yeah, no regrets.
Okay, thank you. And now, see, another question from Jennifer. Do you think you absolutely need to learn language to get the most out of Mexico?
Yes.
To get the most, I think is definitely yes, without a doubt. To get the most, yes.
And the reason I say, the reason I say yes is not because you need to speak Spanish to live here. You don't need to speak Spanish to live in Mexico. You could live in Mexico not knowing Spanish. That's possible. Mm-hmm. To get the fullest out of your experience of being in Mexico, speak the language. And I think also as well, think about when you're in the US or the UK or wherever you're from, and how difficult it is to be able to interact with someone in a wholesome way that doesn't speak a lick of English. It's challenging. It's not impossible, but it's challenging, and there's barriers in there. Once someone has a bigger command of the language, then a lot more doors open up. I also think as well, we need to get out of this mentality of people should speak English to us. They have no obligation to speak English to you in Mexico. It's a Spanish-speaking country. So I just think in terms of like solid travel etiquette, if you're going to be in a place for any real length of time, having at least some command of the language is just, I think, respectful, really. Yeah, because then otherwise you're relying on other people knowing the language. Yeah.
And I think there are ways in which not speaking the language fluently has cost me more money, right?
Yes.
I'd be in the grocery store, I have a checkout aisle ready to pay, and now she's trying to say something to me. Is it a club card? What is the thing that you need to say to me at the checkout? Because usually it's just the price, unless there's like, if you have a card, I don't.
Yes.
I see what's on the register. Let me just pay that, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. Could I survive? I think it would be hard to survive here without any Spanish. Even when I stayed here once, when there's a lot more English spoken in Mexico City than there was even 5 years ago. But 6 years ago, I stayed in a neighborhood here that was very, very low. I was the only foreigner. I walked into a restaurant and I have a good command of like ordering food, but it wasn't good enough for people who don't speak who like Spanish only. What are you doing here? Not like, what are you doing here, foreigner? But like, girl, I'm like saying the words, I'm pointing at things in the menu. And I don't know whether they didn't believe that I actually wanted to eat it, but like it was 10 minutes of like, what? And I was like, I want this. And like that amount of back and forth where like, I think I'm being very clear because I have some Spanish, right? But they're not used to dealing with people who only speak some Spanish in the sense that like in a lot of places, I'm going to speak to Mexico specifically, in a lot of places where people aren't used to people who don't speak Spanish, they're not used to slowing down so you can understand the words that they're saying. And when you tell them to slow down, they're going to repeat it back to you at the same speed.
And adding more words.
Because like, why aren't you smart? Like, hello. Because they're just not used to people who don't. Yeah. All the time, someone is like, why wouldn't like,
exactly.
I'm using like third grade words. Why don't you understand it? I'm like, the speed at which you say, the start of one word and the end of another word aren't clicking in my ear.
Because there's no difference. That's why most of the time they speak fast.
So fast.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge hurdle. That's a huge hurdle.
It is.
But the more I know where people speak if I'm going to have a hard time, if I know when I'm having a hard time, it's me. I know, but if I like, I'm really clear, but like, I understand Spanish. I understand slow Spanish, right? I can usually get someone to like work with me on something. Someone in here is going to work. Or sometimes I've been in restaurants where they see me walk in and they're like, hey, English speaker, come on. We got another one. We could just come on. And I'm like, no, I speak. And they're like, no, come on.
You think you do, but you don't.
You think you speak Spanish, but you don't. So it's not that you can't do it. It's that your experiences are limited.
Yes.
And you're internally most likely to feel frustrated at points because you're like,
sure.
I want to, I especially when I'm like, I have the words to do this interaction. And I still didn't do it well, right? This is still not what I want.
Yeah. It's tough. It can be, it's not easy to learn a new language. It's really tough. What I did, I concentrated on learning a huge bank of words before I came. So I didn't sit down and learn grammar and sentences and all of that kind of stuff to any advanced level. I made sure that I had as many words that I knew as possible, because I know that I could kind of pull together some semblance of a sentence from my bank of words to make myself known. And that's how I kind of managed initially when I got here. And I managed really well. And now I'm at the point where actually my Spanish is really improving and I can hold conversations and it's much better. But I would definitely say, like, up your language skills for sure. Otherwise, you're going to be doing things like playing potluck with the services that you get and the products that you get. So for food, for example, I'm celiac and I'm a vegan. So I need to be very specific when I go into a restaurant as to what I'm getting. You know, I can't go in and just be like, well, I'll have that one, because, you know, it could hospitalize me. So I have to have the language to be able to let them know what my dietary needs are, in a way that's understandable for them. If you're somebody who's absolutely fine with, you know, playing lucky dip with your meals and stuff, like, don't learn Spanish. Just, you know, because you might get pork, you might get lamb. Well, you won't get lamb. You might get pork. You might get beef. You might get chicken.
And what it says on the menu might not be what you were getting anyway. So it's always like, those conversations are really important. So you guys know Adelia, she eats, I don't know, but I don't know what she does eat, but we know she doesn't eat fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
And we used to go out and the waiter would say, like, no vegetables. No, like, no, we should be very clear. I don't eat fruits and vegetables. If there are any, take them out. And it would come like full of lettuce, because lettuce isn't a vegetable. But like, so you have to like, and we had to get expansive with, like, there's no tomatoes. And they'd be like, you don't want tomatoes? Like, no.
Like, it's true. Like, chicken is apparently not a meat. If I say I want a vegan, is it vegan? Sí, yes.
No meat?
Seguro? Sin carne? Sí, without meat? Sí. Yes, no meat. Rundown of the ingredients. Chicken. It's got pollo, it's chicken, it's got butter.
So to maximize your experience, you need Spanish. If you're going to a smaller town with less foreigners,
definitely
you need Spanish. If you're going to a huge town for a week, learn a few words, right? Learn 50 words if you can, right? You're still gonna get lost a couple times, but it's a helpful place. But if you're moving here and you have, like, I can't eat corn or flour. I can't eat corn in Mexico, right? So, like, you know, those conversations are wild. Like, nope. I'm like, yeah, just
everything's corn here.
I lived above a taco stand once, and I was like, I walked out of a Tupperware dish, and I was like, can you just put the meat, onions, and cilantro in this bowl? And they were like, what? I was like, just put it. Turns out it was tongue. And that was it was not anywhere on their cart. Because I know the word for tongue. There were no signs on the cart. And I didn't ask.
Yeah.
It was a tongue taco cart.
Nice.
I don't eat tongue. So I was like, I was like, oh, I didn't ask enough questions. But yeah, there are, if you want to eat street food, you got to learn a couple words, or have your Google Translate, some kind of translating app.
Well, I think just to kind of manage here, I know what a lot of people do that have children, for example, their nanny acts as their translator or that kind of stuff. Like, I personally make a point of not using Google Translate or anything like that when I'm going about my day, because that forces me to speak. It forces me to use my language skills and improve them. So I'm constantly in those awkward situations where I'm like trying to make myself understood and trying to find the words. But I find that that's how I learn really well. The only time I really allow myself to use the Translate apps is, you know, if it's an emergency situation, or if it's if I'm dealing with some sort of organization, school, doctors, that sort of thing.
I freestyle it sometimes with doctors, especially if it's something that I've dealt with before, where, like, I know enough of the words in, like, it's a condition I've had for a while. It's when I need to be very, very clear with someone that I'm like, I'm taking out my app. I've also had this happen a few more times than I've expected. I take out my app and I translate it, and I show them the words so that I understand, so that we're on the same page. And then I realized I don't think this person can read.
Oh gosh! Oh wow! Do you know? I never thought of that.
I've had that happen. So now I try not to do that unless it's someone I know and I know they can, or like I have a reason to believe they can actually. And I'm not saying that there's a lot of illiterate people here. I'm saying that I have encountered some people who are like, I don't know what that says. And at first I was like, no, the words are like the translation is. Oh, I see what's going on here. Okay, so it's a really complicated thing to maneuver through, and the best way to maneuver through it is to continue to learn more of the language.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, let me see what else we have in the comments. Plant-based. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I'm using Google Translate less and less unless it's like a technical thing. Or I need like every once in a while I need to be very, very clear with my cleaning lady about something. And she does not do slow. So I'm like, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And to be fair, most people here are really, okay with dealing with people who don't speak the language. If they see you trying, they will give you the space to try and to find the words, and they won't get frustrated with you or anything like that. They're usually really, really friendly. Sometimes too friendly, i.e. the taxi man who offered to give me lessons in my house. He wasn't being kind.
A little bonus after that taxi ride. All right, let's get back to some of these.
Yeah, I did. No more said that one.
Let's get back to some of these questions. Simi wants to know, how do you manage the long distance with your family in the UK? Do you plan to go back regularly?
So we manage just using online, sometimes Zoom. A lot of the time it's WhatsApp, video calls. There's a really nice app called Marco Polo where you can just send like snippets of your day. So we really kind of find different ways of connecting than we used to. It sometimes is hard because sometimes life gets busy and you kind of have to really stop and be intentional with communication. Life can happen, and sometimes before you know it, it's like, oh, I haven't spoken to such and such for a week or whatever, and then you have to kind of jump on it. But yeah, it's been okay managing the long distance with family. Also, as well, I haven't lived in the UK for a very, very long time, really. Before here, I was in the UK for 1.5 years, and then for 4 years I was living on a small island. So my family are kind of used to me not being physically there. And so we have established ways of communicating and remaining in contact that kind of works for us. My family and my friends know that I'm not the person that they're going to hear from necessarily every single day, but I will check in and I will connect. And going back, we'll probably go back probably next year at some point, I reckon. The flight is a long flight for a 4-year-old and a 41-year-old. So yeah, it's not an easy journey to make back. So we'll probably head back next year at some point.
Okay. All right. Going back to language for a second, Kat had a good comment, which is the person might speak Mayan, not Spanish, depending on where in Mexico they're from. I just did a quick little search and account, and there are 16 native languages, not including Spanish, because that's not a native language. There are 16 native languages that have more than 100,000 speakers in Mexico. So depending on what region you're in, the person may not speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to tell you to learn one of the 3 different Mayan languages that currently exist. I think at least at the top of a list. Yeah, there's and I'm not, actually it's more than that. There's there's a lot. Spanish tends to be the language that unites people. I walked past a Black woman on the street the other day and I said hello to her in Spanish. She said hello to me. She's Haitian. And she tried in French and I tried in English, and we were like, no, we should stay in Spanish.
Yes.
Right? It's that in the country, it's that uniting force, but you should not assume that someone speaks it. It's if there were, I find that a lot of my interactions are transactional. So like in Mexico City, if they're working in a store or a restaurant, they probably speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It may not be the only language they speak, but they probably speak it. Their Spanish is probably better than my Spanish, right? So even if they speak another native language, they speak Spanish as well.
For sure. If they're Mayan and if they're there for commerce reasons, for business, they probably will speak Spanish because they will need to communicate with other Spanish speakers most likely.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's probably a lot less offensive to assume that someone who lives in Mexico speaks Spanish than it is to assume that they speak English and to ask them to speak English.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I find it a bit of a pet peeve when people go in and they're like, do you speak English? Or hablas inglés? Like, no, do you speak Spanish?
I very rarely do that, but when I do, it's like I know that what I need is going to be a struggle, like, because it's not something I know. Like, I know that I can do this in Spanish, but if your English is better than my Spanish, I'll like. If you don't, well, you know what I mean. I'm not gonna not. But sometimes when it's something like technical or detailed, I'm like, and I don't think Translate's gonna help me. I'm like, if anyone speaks English, we can do this. But if not, let's thug it out in Spanish because it's gonna be ugly. But like you said, I have a bank of words. I can get it done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, whew, sometimes
it's like I was trying to find out about the Tren Maya the other day, the new train line, and I went into the office and the woman didn't speak any English, and I was trying to communicate in Spanish. But we're talking train times, different stops of, names of different cities and towns.
Ooh, and names of cities and towns.
And I was like, huh? Google Translate had to come out. There was no other way that conversation could have happened at all without Google Translate.
Proper nouns, because a lot of, keep in mind, but a lot of the proper nouns are not Spanish, right? They predate Espanol in this country. And so I've never seen this word before. I have no idea how I would pronounce it, and how you pronounce it is definitely not how I would have said it.
Exactly.
I can't even think about how those letters could, I don't know.
Some of it's like, T, X, Y, P, and it's like, how do I even navigate that? But then again, I am someone who has a name that isn't easily pronounced, and I have a approach that you can learn to say my name.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
You can. It's not that difficult. And so I think the more that you're in Mexico and the more that you try, you will learn to say those words that feel impossible to say in the beginning. There were some words that I just thought, I can't say that. How do I even...
You try, yeah. Like you hear it enough, you try, it's fine. Yeah. For me, do you give your name if you're going into like a coffee shop that you're going to one time? Do you use your name or do you use something else?
Yes.
Okay.
So I use Xolani, but then I won't... I will overemphasize the Z, and so they will just spell it with a Z. Yeah.
What I found with Rashida is that I say it to someone, they're confused. I say it again. They write it on the cup. What comes out at the end of the person, another person has to say it at the end of a line, and what they say, I don't even know it's my name. And so either I do Rosa or Rosita, and like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I know that, like, that's me, right?
I think you can pass for Rosita.
Rosita is that works.
Yes.
Roshida, I said it to someone who works I've lived in this building for 5 years. I said it to someone who works at the front desk of my building, and they're like, what? And I'm like, you've been here with me for 5 years, dog. I guess we haven't talked about my name a lot, but but I think what happens is when I get packages, they see the name and they know who it is. but they never have to say the name,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when I walk in the front desk and the regular lady is there, she's like, I got something for you. Okay. Because she sees the name, she knows who I am, she knows I haven't picked up my package yet. She's like, oh, it's her, right? Saying it, and the same way when I hear some Nahuatl words, I'm like, what was that?
Yeah.
I think it's the same kind of thing of like, you're not used to those vowels and consonants going in that order. And so it's a little anyhow, off topic. We went back to yes, I use basic words because
it's easier.
It's easier. I don't feel like having a whole if it sounded like my name at the end, I'd be like, yes, that's fine, but it never does.
The Mexicans are actually quite good at saying my name or some semblance of my name. Well, I say they're better than Brits and Americans.
I think your name could pass as a Mexican name.
Right, exactly, because they have a lot of X's in the language here. But the sound is different. So they might not say it as I would say it, Xolani, but they would say Xolani or Xolani, you know, which is how it sounds here. But they'll get closer than most Brits and Americans, who will come out with all sorts of fantastical names for me when they try to read my name.
So that's not my experience. I think my name just doesn't look like anything. And I think if a Mexican person walked in with that name, they might be like, let me try to figure it out. But with me, they're like, this is some new thing we don't understand, right? There's like, it's gonna be confusing. I don't know what your name is. It's too much. And if it's an English speaker, I kind of get insisted, but like, these are words that you can put, these letters, you can put them together. But here, if it's not like someone that I'm going to deal with all the time, it's fine. It's fine. There are a lot of words I can't say, so it's fine.
Exactly.
It's fine. All right. There's a great question from Kat. How do you find running an online business in the midst of what I've heard about rolling blackouts? Do you guys have rolling
joys? The joys of the rolling blackouts. Yes, we have blackouts. Not too often. Some people get power cuts a lot. Mm-hmm. They tend to be, from my experience, people who live outside of like the Periférico, which is the highway that circles the city. If you live outside of it, then you're in more of kind of, you're out of the city basically. So it's not Merida proper. And they get quite a lot of blackouts. I've had a few here where I live. I live in the north, but within the city. I've had a few blackouts and it's been manageable actually. It has impacted my work on occasion, but I just make sure that I have a solid backup plan. So, for example, I know the local places that I can go to find sort of co-working places. So there's like a co-working spot not far from me. If there's a blackout, I can usually just pick my stuff up, quickly run over to the co-working space and continue on with what I need to do there. That's only happened, I'd say, less than a handful of times in the nearly year that I've been here. So it's not been a huge problem for me, really. Okay. Yeah,
that's good. It was raining last night, y'all. It's not the rainy season rain that we're expecting, but because there was a hurricane on the coast, we always get if there's a hurricane on either coast, we get rain here. And so my internet was in and out. My power flickered off a couple of times, and I'm like, it's a good thing I wasn't in a meeting because the whole computer is off.
Yeah,
the stuff is just off now. And that isn't even like rolling blackouts. That's just the grid usually works fine until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then
it's Mexico, so I think some degree of flexibility is needed. My clients know where I am. And as part of the work that I do with my clients, they will know the parameters of the work, and I will set up my sessions that I have with people in a way that they know if the internet goes down, we'll try to reconnect, for example, or if this happens, I will contact you and we'll put this plan in place. So I have a plan with my clients before we even start the work. So if things do happen where the internet goes down, it's not a huge problem. Now that works because I have my own business. If you're here and you're working for somebody else, especially if you're one of the folks here that's working here that's not supposed to be, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I wouldn't recommend that at all. But yeah, we did have an incident 2 months ago where we didn't have power for 3 days. And that was nothing to do with rolling blackouts. But I live in like a little terrace of like interconnected houses or like attached houses. And somehow the power company mixed up my bill with one of the other people along here who haven't paid their bill. And they disconnected our service, saying that because we haven't paid the bill, it's not coming back on until the bill's paid. Meanwhile, the bill has been paid. The bill's been paid. So yeah, we had a back and forth between me, my landlord, and the company trying to sort it all out. And Mexico doesn't play. In the UK, if they ain't going to cut off your services, they'll threaten to. You might get letters, you might get additional charges onto your bill or whatever, but they're not likely to cut off your services. But in Mexico, you don't pay your bill, you don't get the service. They will cut off your electricity in a heartbeat. And so they didn't care that I have a 4-year-old. As far as they were concerned, the bill hadn't been paid, the electricity is gone. But my landlord is wonderful, and he moved us to another. So the first night we stayed in a hotel, and then the next 2 nights my landlord moved us to another property for a couple of days, which he didn't have to do because it wasn't his issue. But yeah, so we were fine.
Good. Yeah, my gas has been turned off twice because I didn't pay the bill. Because I don't know about y'all, but the way it happens here is like the bill shows up and you have 3 days to pay it, or they cut it off, and the bill could show up after those 3 days.
Yeah,
and then you got to still pay it.
And the bill doesn't show up to your door.
No. Okay, for me, the bill shows up in my mailbox.
Right. Yeah. Okay, you're lucky.
So I have to know when it's coming to know when to check, because I get 2-3 things in the mail each month. So you know what I mean? Like, unless I'm checking every day, I don't know when it comes. But also, there have been occasions where it does not show up until it's late.
Right.
And I need the number on the bill to pay the bill.
Yeah.
They've now started having they didn't have it when I moved here, but they now have and they've gone through 3 different versions of the online system, but they now have an online system I can use. So right. my electric bill is set up to automatic pay. My gas bill, I know when to check. They send me an email and I check online and go pay it online. My water bill, a mystery and confusion. But they will not shut off your water. My water bill has been like 6 months late, and they don't shut off. They do not. They don't shut off. Maybe now, but we're running out of water. They will, but they haven't.
Your electricity, they will cut you off. Yeah. They will.
Gas and electric, they'll be like.
Yeah, we don't have gas in our house. We're fully electric, but yeah, it's not fun. And with a 4-year-old, no.
My landlord called me once in like a panic because the building I'm in called her and was like, the electric company is about to shut off the electricity because they haven't paid it. And I was like, here's proof that I paid it. And she was like, you need to go talk to you need to go talk to the building management. I go to the building management. And they're like, why are you telling us? You need to tell the electric company. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to CFE to tell them. They know I paid the bill. Like, I don't know what is happening here, but I have paid this bill and it's been paid for days. So please. So there's that amount of like chaos. Can you pay ahead for your gas bills? No. So funny story with the gas bill. When it was shut off once, I paid the amount online after it was shut up. But that's not the proper process. The proper process is to go to a store and pay it there and pay the extra amount. That amount that I paid, that extra amount that I paid, so I paid the bill twice, once online and then once in the store with the extra amount. That extra amount I paid never got credited to my account at all. It went into the ether. I mean, my gas bill isn't like a Merida, like it's not, you know what I mean? It was probably like $10 or something.
Okay.
Which they were going to shut me off for that 10, maybe $20.
Yeah.
But that money has never been credited to my account. It went into the ether. Who knows? So no, don't rely on a credit. You're not.
No, they do things paper, hand, like that's how they like to do things majority of the time. Here. So paying bills, in person.
Yeah. Dee says she's had her gas and electric cut off too.
You see? Pay your bills, Dee.
It's so easy. It's so easy to have, like, literally the window on the bill is usually for us somewhere between like 5 and 10 days.
It's not a
but
lot.
you might not see the bill until after those 5 or 10 days are over.
Yeah, it's not. I'm sorry. The reason I said pay your bill, Dee's my friend, by the way.
No. Yeah, I figured that.
Costing some random person. It's not always easy to navigate how to, do things the right way, because they don't really explain it to you when you get here. Some people like to use, these sort of services that people have that take them around and show them how to do things. I didn't do that. I didn't see the need to do that. But that did mean that my learning curve was much steeper.
Yeah.
And I had to do things a bit more the hard way sometimes, but it's manageable. You can work it out if you're willing to be a bit more open-minded and understand that things don't flow the same way they do back home, but they're not supposed to because you're not back home. Then you can kind of work your way around things and, not get frustrated.
Okay. I could talk to you for like another hour about this. I think you have to come back sometime.
I would love to. That would be lovely.
We'll talk more about the dating stuff you didn't want to talk about today. It'll be further into the future, so I'm sure you'll be more open about it.
I am open about the dating stuff. Like, I'm open about the dating stuff. Dating is hard in Merida. It's there. It's not easy. Don't do on your doorstep. Make sure that you're honest in your connections, and understand that sometimes, particularly in the expat community, people don't always have the same intentions that you have. Some people are here for a long time. Some people are here for a good time, and you need to be clear on what you want and what you don't.
Okay. I thought I was going to let you go with that, but I do have a follow-up question.
Yes.
You talked about where the gaps are in dating locals. Have you gotten to the in-person experience? And was that if you have, were those good experiences or ones you would recommend?
No, I haven't got to that point with a local. I have with a non-local, but not with a local. And but I have been in the talking stage with a few people. Some have been grating metal, and some have flowed a bit more easier. But it's either way, it's been quite difficult and quite challenging, I found. And I think until, like I say, my language skills are improved a bit, or until I meet a local who is both English and Spanish speaking, then that kind of narrows the market for me, which is a shame, because I don't want to be limited to just the expat community, really. But it is about navigating it in a way that actually works for me. I find it tedious trying to have a conversation with someone and not being able to just send a little flirty text, or
Planter. Yes.
you can't. How do you flirt in Spanish?
Also, I feel like because I don't know when I'm dating, when I'm online, I'm not dating. I'm terrible at that. But when I'm communicating on an app with a man, because I don't know what the cultural expectations are. I don't know where they're used to lines being drawn, right? And so that's also like, for me, adds a little bit of complication because like, maybe that message sounded crazy, right? And like, what you just said to me sounded a little insane. And I don't know if that's just like okay culturally or whether you're insane, right? Like, I don't know, or whether you're sometimes in other, I haven't dated here, so I haven't experienced this here, but sometimes in other countries, you see people pushing the boundary with you because you're foreign. So you can't be, you can't have all the morals that the local women have, right? You're an American, you're from the UK, you got to be a whore. So let's let me push on this thing. And so I don't know here sometimes how to take the messages I get. Like,
they are. I do know that they are very forward with their feelings. So I've experienced that for sure. Whereas in our culture, we're kind of a bit more reserved, and we have that kind of, I'm not really going to say too much too soon. I might think and feel things, but I might not communicate that to you. But in Mexico, they're much more like, this is what I feel, this is what I say. So I have experienced a lot more of that, a lot more kind of open, like, oh, okay, that's a lot, nothing crazy or nothing kind of really, scary or anything like that. But yeah, they're definitely much more forward in their use of language. Also, as well, something that scares me, so it just popped into my head, I don't know the correct etiquette and words to use to communicate levels. So in Mexico, in Spanish, saying I like you has a different meaning to saying I like you in English. When they say I like you in Spanish, that means that it's what it's saying, like it's really deep feelings for somebody. You would say that to someone who you feel really, really deep feelings for. But I could go on a first date with someone and say, oh, I like you, and mean it in a much more casual way. But if I say it to someone in Spanish, it has a whole different meaning.
Yes.
And may mean a lot more than actually I intended it to mean.
Now you're engaged, right?
Now you're engaged. And
now y'all go together just because you were like,
people are looking for hats to wear to the wedding, and yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being a guest today. This was awesome. Such a good chat.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed myself. Yeah, I think, you guys are doing great work, as you know, and I appreciate what we're calling the community. Yeah.
All right. Tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
So you can get in touch with me on my YouTube channel, which is Black Flourishing and Free, where I do different videos and stuff, and I have affirmations videos as well. You can get in touch with me on my Instagram, which is also at Black Flourishing and Free. No underscores or anything, just all smushed together. And you can also hit me up on my website, which is xolanitherapy.com, all one word. And that has links to all the services, the professional services that I provide with regards to mental health, therapy, and coaching.
All right. And all of those links are in the description of this video. Okay. You guys need a therapist. Y'all know who Xolani is already. So don't be scared to reach out to her. She's very, very approachable.
I am. I'm not looking, but
I am. And thank you guys for spending almost 2.5 hours with us today.
Gosh, it's been that long. Oh my gosh, it really has. Wow.
I looked at the time about 15 minutes ago. I was like, oh, okay. It did not feel like that at all.
Not at all. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Rashida.
Thank you, everybody. Bye, guys.
Adios.
And we